In just 10 minutes, uncover shocking truths from Dr. Mayim Bialik's conversation with psychologist Barry Kaufman. Are past lives real? Can telepathy be proven? Is ADHD actually a sign of genius? Kaufman challenges science's biggest mistakes and exposes hidden truths about intelligence, trauma, and human potential. Watch till the end for all 10 takeaways. You won't believe what he reveals. Takeaway 1. Past life memories may be real. Dr. Barry Kaufman, who once dismissed the idea of past lives, now believes there is something real about it. He explains that some children are born with incredible talents they have never learned or practiced before. These abilities appear suddenly, often at a very young age, and cannot be explained by genetics alone. For example, there are cases of young children who sit at a piano and play complex music perfectly without having taken any lessons. Some people argue that this is due to their genes or exposure to music in their family. However, Kaufman believes these children may be accessing memories from a past life. He also wonders if such memories could be stored in DNA or even in a larger collective consciousness that people can tap into. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 2. Telepathy might have scientific support. The idea that people can communicate through thoughts alone is often dismissed as fantasy, but Kaufman believes there are serious cases worth investigating. He mentions an experiment where a child in one room was able to verbalize exactly what his mother was reading in another room. This suggests that some form of mind-to-mind communication could be real. For example, many autistic savants report having strange abilities that they cannot explain. Some claim they can tune in to other people's thoughts or access knowledge that they have never been taught. While science has not yet found a way to prove telepathy consistently, Kaufman argues that this does not mean it is impossible. He believes we need better experiments designed to measure these abilities properly. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 3. Intelligence is measured incorrectly. Society has a very limited way of measuring intelligence, and Kaufman argues that this is a big problem. Schools and workplaces value people who can think and respond quickly, but they often ignore people who process information deeply or in creative ways. He believes this is a mistake because intelligence comes in many forms. For example, a student who struggles with math tests might actually be a brilliant problem solver in real-life situations. A person who finds it hard to memorize facts might have an incredible ability to invent new ideas. However, because traditional intelligence tests focus on speed and memory, these people are often labeled as less intelligent, when in reality, they might be geniuses in a different way. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 4. ADHD could be a sign of giftedness. ADHD is usually seen as a disorder, but Kaufman argues that it can actually be a sign of high potential. He explains that people with ADHD often have an overactive imagination, allowing them to generate unique ideas and make unexpected connections. The problem is not ADHD itself, but how society forces these individuals to fit into rigid systems that do not support their way of thinking. For example, Albert Einstein was known for daydreaming and struggling in traditional school. Yet he transformed physics. Leonardo da Vinci constantly jumped between ideas, but this made him one of the greatest inventors and artists in history. Kaufman explains that many with ADHD experience hyperfocus, meaning they can concentrate intensely on things they are passionate about, even if they struggle with routine tasks. Instead of medicating children just to make them fit into standard classrooms, Kaufman suggests adapting education to support their strengths. He argues that ADHD should not be seen as a disability, but as a different cognitive style, one that, when nurtured properly, can lead to exceptional creativity and innovation. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 5. Narcissism isn't what we think. Many people assume narcissists are just arrogant people who believe they are better than everyone else. However, Kaufman explains that narcissism comes in two forms: grandiose narcissism and vulnerable narcissism. Grandiose narcissists see themselves as superior and demand admiration, while vulnerable narcissists feel entitled because they believe they have suffered more than others. For example, a grandiose narcissist might dominate conversations, dismiss criticism, and act as if rules don't apply to them. In contrast, a vulnerable narcissist may constantly seek sympathy, blame others for their failures, and feel resentment toward those they see as more successful. Kaufman warns that vulnerable narcissism is on the rise, especially in social media spaces where people crave validation and attention. He explains that while grandiose narcissists tend to be more openly self-centered, vulnerable narcissists can be harder to spot because they present themselves as victims. This makes them more likely to manipulate others emotionally, creating toxic relationships both online and in real life. We're halfway through the video. Thank you for sticking with us this far. If you're enjoying it, please give us a thumbs up and share it in your WhatsApp groups. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to comment below. To see more videos like this, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Now let's continue with the video. Takeaway 6. The education system is broken. Schools are designed for a very specific type of student, one who can sit still, memorize facts, and follow instructions. Kaufman argues that this system is outdated and fails to support many students who have different kinds of intelligence. He shares his own story of being misdiagnosed with a learning disability, which led to years of frustration and low self-esteem before he was able to prove his true abilities. For example, many children with ADHD or dyslexia are labeled as problem students, when in reality they have incredible potential. Instead of forcing every student to fit into the same mold, Kaufman suggests that education should be more flexible, allowing students to learn in ways that suit their individual strengths. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 7. Trauma can lead to creative genius. There is a surprising link between childhood trauma and exceptional creativity. Many of history's greatest artists, musicians, and thinkers developed their gifts as a way to process emotional pain. Kaufman explains that trauma can alter brain function, shifting a person's perspective and increasing their ability to think in abstract, unconventional ways. This can result in deep creativity as people channel their struggles into art, music, writing, or scientific discovery. For example, Vincent van Gogh grew up feeling unloved and rejected, as his parents openly favored his younger brother. His emotional struggles, combined with severe mental illness, later fueled his raw and expressive paintings. Frida Kahlo suffered from polio as a child and later endured a near-fatal bus accident, leaving her in lifelong pain. Her art became an outlet for her suffering. Edgar Allan Poe was orphaned at a young age and raised by a foster family that never fully accepted him, which shaped the dark themes in his poetry and stories. Kaufman believes that while trauma can be deeply damaging, it can also push individuals to explore new ways of expressing themselves. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 8. The mind might access information non-locally. Most scientists believe that all thoughts and ideas come from inside the brain. However, Kaufman suggests that the mind might actually be able to access information from outside of itself. This could explain why some people feel like their greatest ideas come from an external source, rather than from their own thinking. For example, famous composers like Mozart have described feeling as if their music was being dictated to them from somewhere else. Writers and inventors often report having sudden bursts of inspiration that seem to come out of nowhere. Kaufman believes this might be evidence of a collective consciousness that people can tap into. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 9. Cognitive distortions can ruin your life. Cognitive distortions are faulty ways of thinking that make people feel powerless and stuck in a victim mindset. Kaufman explains that these distortions create an exaggerated or false view of reality, leading to unnecessary suffering and anxiety. The good news is that once people recognize these patterns, they can start to change them. For example, a person who is rejected from a job interview might think, "I will never be successful in life." This is an example of catastrophizing, that is, turning one setback into an extreme negative belief. Another example is mind reading, where someone assumes others are thinking bad things about them without any real proof. Learning to challenge these negative thoughts can help people take back control of their lives. Now let's move to the last takeaway. Takeaway 10. Science is afraid of topics like telepathy. Kaufman criticizes mainstream scientists for dismissing topics like past lives and telepathy without proper investigation. He argues that traditional science is designed to study things that happen frequently and consistently, but that doesn't mean rare or unexplained events should be ignored. For example, many scientists reject studies on telepathy because they cannot replicate the results in a lab setting. However, Kaufman believes this is a flaw in the scientific method, not proof that telepathy does not exist. He argues that instead of ignoring unusual phenomena, scientists should work harder to develop better tools and methods to study them properly. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, please leave a like below and share this video in your WhatsApp groups. You can also discuss about this video by commenting below. To get more such videos in your timeline, press the subscribe button below.